So in this video series so far, we've looked at what ethical artificial intelligence is and how it applies to accountants, and also the impact on data privacy laws. But in this video, we're going to look at the impact on regulatory compliance, as of course the accounting profession is full of compliance expectations and also regulations, and not just from the membership bodies, but also from various different legal entities such as the European Union and the relevant governments in the countries in which you may use AI. And it's a very, very important topic because nothing is going to bring more damage, more reputational impact on your firm than breaching compliance and breaching regulations. It's not just about avoiding a scandal, it's about actually maintaining professional standards as well. We can't just say, well, we only act ethically to avoid fines and to avoid legal actions. It's about acting in the right way. It's about being an accountant that is actually doing what an accountant should be doing, that is acting within the bounds of professional competence and due care. And the problem with artificial intelligence is that the regulatory landscape is constantly changing. In the last couple of years, AI has evolved greatly, and the regulations regarding its usage are struggling to keep up. And that's what we're going to look at in this section. So for starters, we'll recap some of the key laws and standards that affect our usage of AI in the profession. First of all, we've got key data protection laws such as GDPR. And these also give rights to individuals. So it gives rights to our clients, rights to our clients' companies, and anyone that is affected by our operations. The accounting profession is also bound by a professional code of ethics, integrity, objectivity, competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. And all of that needs to be integrated into the way we use artificial intelligence. And professional bodies such as ACCA and ICAEW have provided frameworks for ethical AI development, which we're going to come on to in a moment. And the European Union has also introduced a new risk-based framework for using artificial intelligence. And of course, the European Union, if you're in the United Kingdom, not necessarily bound by new rules and regulations from the European Union, but it of course affects all of Europe, a lot of Europe, and affects the operations of any accounting firm doing business with companies in Europe. So just a quick recap on GDPR compliance. It's of course one of the most famous data protection regulations. Severe fines of up to 20 million euros or 4% of turnover can be applied to anyone breaching GDPR, and AI makes it very easy to breach GDPR if you do not use it correctly and ethically. You might have to do a full impact assessment on any data protection risk, particularly if it's something that is involving lots of important client information. And also remember that individuals, be they consumers, be they clients, etc., have rights. They must be able to provide consent. They must be able to access their information and tell you how they want their information to be used. And this, of course, is all very, very important because a 4% of turnover fine could be very, very damaging to a business in a financial sense, but also, of course, in a reputational sense. We also have to think about how our professional ethics code applies to our usage of AI. So, for example, with integrity, we must be honest and upfront about our use of AI and also the capabilities of it as well. Don't go promising the world because of an AI tool. We must also be objective. Don't let the hype around any kind of vendor that's trying to sell you an AI tool blind you to what you need to be doing and the standards you need to continually maintain. Make sure that you use tools properly. Make sure you get proper training on those tools. Don't just look at it as something flashy that you're going to experiment with when you're using sensitive data. Be clear and upfront about your own limitations and get training to make sure that you are not running the risk of breaching any regulations. Make sure that you're always protecting client data in these AI systems to help maintain that confidentiality part of your professional ethics. And also, don't do anything that jeopardizes or brings into disrepute the profession as well. So always uphold professional behavior. Always make sure you are checking any outputs from artificial intelligence. And the professional bodies of the accounting profession have provided guidance on this, such as ACCA, that again is emphasizing this idea of ethical use of AI development, including transparency and effective governance over its use, making sure that you're mitigating the risk of things like bias and data privacy. And also, they mentioned something called the magnification effect of AI errors, which of course is essentially when things get multiplied and magnified over time. So if you use AI and it makes a mistake and then that is passed off without a review, and then that information is in turn again used in an AI tool, it will again just multiply and you'll get exponentially worse data. And also, if the AI is being trained on that data, you are training the AI to make mistakes, which of course is no good. It defeats the purpose of using it. And ICAW provides AI ethical modules on this and highlights the need to question AI outputs. So again, it's going back to this idea of it is a tool. It is there for you to use to help with your workload, but it does not replace your expertise, which is a good thing in terms of your job security, but also to stress the point that you cannot just wholeheartedly rely on the output. You still need to check the output. And something that has been brought in recently is the new EU AI Act. And this is very, very important. And this is something that is coming into effect gradually and ultimately affects your usage of AI, or particularly if you are in the European Union. And it basically separates AI uses into various different categories and suggests how to act with each one or whether to use AI for each one. And it's been officially passed in 2024, and it is a risk-based framework. So it categorizes AI systems into different levels. The first one being unacceptable risk. An unacceptable risk is essentially anything that negatively affects safety or fundamental rights. And it bans practices like discriminatory social scoring. So you're not allowed to develop an AI system that essentially grades people and discriminates against people, which is fairly clear, I suppose. You would expect that to be the case. You then have high-risk AI tools, and that's the second level. And so this might be things like the tools that help make financial decisions, and these are considered to be high risk. And therefore, you must have a lot of transparency, a lot of risk assessment as you use any tool which has a high risk. Then you have limited risks. So ones that perhaps there isn't a particular risk of using it, but there are some risks, and therefore you have transparency obligations for it. And finally, minimal risk. So most AI tools that have no real impact on anything like bias or data privacy, etc. These are minimal risk. This might be just things that you're using that are built into an email system already to help draft emails, for example. It's not using private information or anything like that. It's minimal risk. And the timeline of the integration of this act. So in February 2025, initial requirements came into effect, such as a ban on unacceptable practices. And it is believed that by 2025, additional requirements, including the documentation and transparency for high risk, so that was the second lowest or the second highest categorization, will come into effect, and full implementation from next year and beyond. And again, like with GDPR, there are potential penalties of up to 6% of global turnover if you are not complying with the EU's new laws. Of course, it's not just about the EU's act and professional behaviours, etc. one of the main roles of an accountant is to do with tax and to do with reporting, and there are their own requirements for that as well, such as with HMRC or IRS, depending whether you're in the UK, whether you're in the US. They will expect you to provide accurate filings regardless of how they're prepared. It's not a case of you can just say, oh, well, we used an AI tool and it told us X, Y, Z. You can't use that as a defense. So using AI itself is not going to help you to get around any kind of accuracy requirements with the HMRC. They also expect you to keep clear records of AI-generated figures to satisfy the Making Tax Digital requirements. So again, what you need to do here, how you would implement this in your day-to-day, is making sure you've got a clear audit trail of everything you use AI for. And tax authorities themselves use their own AI. So it's not to say that you can't use AI, because companies or organizations like HMRC are using AI themselves to detect fraud. But what that also means is that their systems might be trained in a way that detects AI being used by other systems. So you need to be aware that tax authorities may be able to identify where you are using AI and may potentially put more scrutiny on you when you are doing so. Also, with things like anti-money laundering regulations and compliance, that's of course something that's very important and changes every year. So if you are using artificial intelligence to help with client onboarding or transaction monitoring, you must meet the standards of the anti-money laundering regulations. And any automated decision that's not properly verified might have significant regulatory impacts. But of course, it's not about talking about the downsides of using AI. It's about being able to use it to help you out with your efficiencies, but remaining compliant. So some key things to ensure that you and your organization are remaining compliant is to always be aware of the requirements and make sure you're keeping up to date with changes and developments, and you're factoring those into your AI processes. Making sure that you have a firm governance throughout your company with regards to using AI and managing risk within the organization, and ensuring that you integrate any kind of changes to compliance into your AI policies and programs, and if necessary, seek legal counsel for it to ensure that you are staying compliant, because AI, of course, is a brilliant tool, but it's not worth it if you are running the risk of breaching rules and breaching regulations. And so I suggest adapting a governance framework within your organization, such as starting by evaluating the risks of AI implementation, seeking support and consulting advice for that, including with regards to data privacy, bias, and compliance. Making sure you have a formal policy in place for everyone to use, so you can be assured that everyone in the organization is using AI in a way that aligns with professional standards and regulation, and that you train your staff properly on using AI, but also being aware of the ethical implications and the limitations of it. AI is not a magic tool that can do everything. There are limitations on it. And ensure that you are assessing the use of AI, ensuring that you are monitoring changes and evolutions in rules and regulations, and that you're keeping your AI policies up to date. Also, be aware of the impact on your clients. So always make sure that you're being very transparent with them about how you are using AI, making sure that you are monitoring risks effectively and assuring them of that, and that you are aligning your practices with your use of AI as well, and also your clients' compliance requirements and risk assessments as well. Just a quick summary of regulations, where the regulatory world is with regards to artificial intelligence at the moment. So in the European Union, that AI Act has been passed. And so for now, watch its implementation, refer to that timeline that I showed earlier and seek guidance where needed. In the United Kingdom and the United States, there are potential regulations and guidance being brought in, but for the most part, in the UK and the US, there is a more industry-led and innovation or pro-innovation approach at the moment. A few months ago, it was a lot of talk about how we needed to regulate this and everything like that, but it's now become a bit of a international and national sort of space race, as it were, where every country wants to be at the forefront of AI. So they're actually tapering down their regulations and they're wanting people to invest in it. They're wanting people to try it. They're not trying to stifle it with regulations. And also keep aware of the professional bodies. I've already mentioned ACCA, ICAW. They are providing guidance and technology updates on it as well. And so some key takeaways here from this section is to be aware of your professional ethical codes and principles and ensure that your AI aligns with those. Make sure you have a compliance focus with regards to professional standards, the EU Act and other rules and regulations, particularly with regards to data privacy. And also ensure that you have robust AI policies and risk management processes with regards to the use of AI in your workplace.